How is everyone doing? All right. Got
Hey, Tango.
Tango sliding in the home. Yeah.
Hey, Tango.
Slid under the tag. You're safe. How's the connection looking down here? Everybody good? All right. All right. Well, welcome to another Thursday GFB, Grown Folks Business, and we're kind of back to business as usual in terms of our topics of discussions. I think we had 2 weeks of one was Black empowerment, and the other one was introducing some great people from the RELC in Rockingham County, the Racial Equity Learning Community. And is everybody there? Can everybody see me? For some reason, it's kind of froze up on my end. Okay. So good to see everybody again, and I'm glad we have one of the usual suspects in Bob and Tango. I'm glad you could join us again this week. I have what I think are some good topics to discuss, and I have a couple of clips I want to show to frame everything. And I'm going to begin with why I called tonight's show back to business as usual. Primarily, how you doing, Dr. Elliott? Glad you could join us. Primarily, I went with this title because I think we're in the first, are we at the first 100 days of Joe Biden's administration? Somewhere in there. And I think they're trying to get back to some business as usual. There's some rumblings of this, that, and the other being more progressive and more thought out and more considerate of the citizenry, but I haven't gotten another stimulus check, and I don't know if anybody else has. And I know that's went from 2,000 to minus the 600 they sent earlier to now it's still, working its way through, and we're going to get it to the people who need it most, which I think is just about everybody. But that's not the main area I wanted to focus on. Some things happened over the last couple of weeks that I definitely wanted to touch on, and I made mention of that to Meryl, but we had other business to attend to with the Black Empowerment Week and RELC. But it's still kind of resonating, so I'm going to play a clip, and it's concerning Joe Biden's response, most recent response to reparations. I can't even say, I don't know to preface it with a conversation or a bill that's been just sitting around for almost 40 years or what, but I'm going to play a clip of his press secretary saying a couple of things, and then I'm going to ask, I'll ask right now, why does Joe Biden seem to be dragging his feet just like everybody else has, and considering who he was in proximity to for quite a period of time? I'll leave that there, and I'll push play. Let me make sure I got this correct because it is always a struggle. Here we go. All right, now I'm confused because something's different. Okay. I think we got it. Let me know if I messed this up at all. You see my screen? Somebody say yeah.
Yep, looks like it.
All right, here we go.
It's like my points and it's kind of all over the place. The president during the campaign supported the study for reparations, the committee to study reparations. There was a House Judiciary Committee hearing today. Does the president support the legislation? He stopped short of saying that during the campaign. Will he sign that if it came to his step?
Well, he's supported study of reparations, which I believe is what's being discussed, and studying the continuing impacts of slavery, which is being discussed. He continues to demonstrate that persists today. Obviously, that is having that study is a part of that, but he has signed an executive order on his first day which would begin to deliver on his commitment to having an across government approach to addressing racial inequality and making sure equity is a part of his entire policy agenda. But he certainly would support a study of reparations. We understands that we don't need a study to take action right now on systemic racism, so he wants to take action within his own government in the meantime.
Will he support the bill? Because you're talking about the study, but if the bill came to his desk, would he sign it?
Well, it's working its way through Congress. He'd certainly support a study, but we'll see what happens through the legislative process.
What's wrong with that? The president signed quite a few executive actions. Mm-hmm. Why not on this issue create a commission and by executive order?
He actually signed a number of actions on racial equity on his first day or his first couple of days in office because he felt it was essential to having equities was not just a single range of issues. That's his approach and how he's trying to address the root causes of racism in our country today.
But he doesn't support a reparations executive order. He would sign it.
Again, it would be up to him. He has executive order authority. He would certainly support a study, and we'll see where Congress moves on that issue. Go ahead.
So, I'm sorry I took the screen off a little quickly, but reparations quickly becomes equity and things that is not, and quickly becomes something that's not precise to the people it was supposed to be meant to help over, hundred and some change years ago. So it had me to thinking, like, these are smart people, or supposedly smart people, supposedly informed people. More research, and more research does nothing. The money that is invested in doing more research could be better utilized, even if it wasn't for reparations. But I started thinking, where could this mentality have formulated and found confidence? And I say that because this is the guy who was in proximity to the first president of color this nation has had. But then when you look at Obama's conversations around reparations, including the most recent, you begin to understand why the feet dragging and the hemming and hawing and the I say one thing and you say something else back and expect me to think it's the same, why it finds so much traction. So I have another clip to show. And here we go.
We do want to turn now to our GMA cover story here. The Obamas are speaking out about race in America. ABC's Elwin Lopez joins us from Atlanta with what the former First Family is saying about things like reparations and racial equality. Elwin, good morning.
Good morning. With former President Barack Obama now explaining why reparations for Black Americans were not on his agenda during his presidency. As Black History Month comes to a close, former first couple, Barack and Michelle Obama, are speaking out on race in America.
In America, liberty, justice, and accountability are not for all.
The ideal, this more perfect union of ours, is far from where the reality has been.
The pair appearing in two separate interviews, with the former president taking a position on the issues of reparations for Black Americans.
So if you ask me, theoretically, are reparations justified? The answer is yes. There's not much question, right?
Joining Bruce Springsteen in the latest episode of their joint podcast, Renegades Born in the USA, saying,
the power of this country was built in significant part, not exclusively, maybe not even the majority of it, but a large portion of it was built on the backs of slaves.
The former president reflecting on why he didn't push for reparations during his administration.
What I saw during my presidency was that the politics of white resistance and resentment, all that made the prospect of actually proposing any kind of coherent, meaningful reparations program struck me as politically not only a non-starter, but potentially counterproductive.
And former First Lady Michelle Obama addresses younger generations directly, making an appearance on YouTube Original's Black History Month special, Black Renaissance.
Deciding who it is you are underneath all the pressures and expectations that other folks want to put on you. It's a lot.
And calling out institutional racism in its past and present forms, sending a message that there is much work to be done.
Your generation knows all too well that those old fault lines of fear, racism, and discrimination based on the color of your skin weren't erased by a civil war or the passing of a Civil Rights Act, and certainly not the election of a black president.
In their podcast series, the former president and the rock star legend also discuss fatherhood, marriage, of course, some musical tunes, including their favorite protest songs. Dan.
Elwin, thank you so much.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks.
All right. So I have one more, and it's shorter, but it puts more into context, in my opinion, where the feet dragging was just enhanced and made more okay by 44. Here we go. And this is from the podcast that they were mentioning. It's actually it kind of puts an exclamation point on things for me. All right, here we go.
And it's perfectly understandable why working class white folks, middle class white folks, folks who are having trouble paying the bills or dealing with student loans or don't have health care, where they feel like government has let them down, wouldn't be thrilled with the idea of a massive program that is designed to deal with the past but isn't speaking to their future.
You're saying we live in a country where we can do that for bankers on Wall Street, but we can't do it for a part of the population that's been struggling for so long.
Well, I promise you, white folks don't like that either. But look, even though I was convinced that reparations was a non-starter during my presidency, I understand the argument of people I respect, like Ta-Nehisi Coates, that we should talk about it anyway. If for no other reason than to educate the country about a past that too often isn't taught, and let's face it, we'd rather forget.
Ugh. I mean, made my stomach hurt to hear all of that. I was utterly appalled. I mean, it gave me much trepidation and angst to try to find the words to even understand how he reaches a conclusion holding the office that he held, to be so considerate of white sensibilities to the detriment of a nation, to continue that, and for him to impose healthcare on everyone. That was something that a lot of people had issue with. But this thing that makes the most sense from this person that's so well informed and so eloquent and so well liked and loved by the nation, what reasons does he think he gets to attain this position and gets the support that he gets if it is not based on some ideas centered around leveling the playing field, making things fair? And it wasn't just Black folks who thought of that in that way and supported him the way they did. Appalled. I was disgusted, and I continue to be. the rearview mirror is not looking too good, in my opinion, in terms of this much celebrated and elevated guy's presidency. But now I understand better why the feet dragging is so easy to do. Can you imagine Joe Biden spending 8 years with somebody who's telling him black people, slaves might have built some of it, not all, but some. They might have did a majority. But just think of, if we do this, how pissed off we're gonna make some other people. You know, the white people that are pissed off anyway, pissed off enough to storm the Capitol and do all kind of crazy stuff that has nothing to do with reparations. Some people gonna be mad regardless. Okay, I'm gonna shut up. I'm interested on thoughts and things centered around this. I don't really have a significant question other than, you know, based on what I just played for you, it's not nitpicked and snipped. It's really just things that caught my attention in the last few weeks that I was like, man, we have other things to do on GFB these weeks, but I've got to make sure I keep these in pocket. And now I'm putting them on the table. So just thoughts, ideas. What do you think about what I just played? I'll definitely appreciate the historian's perspective from Dr. Elliott, but I'm going to start with Ms. Tango.
I don't think we can pin the tail on the donkey. Like, I don't think there's one person that we can hold responsible for where we are. I do think that each individual is made up of our experiences, our exposures, and Barack Obama, in my opinion, has not lived a life similar to mine. I'll say that. And so I think that, you know, because he is biracial and being white and African and not necessarily Black American, I think there's a different perspective and maybe a disconnect in some ways. And I think we do feel a commonality or draw to him because of his skin color, because of his family, because they look like more like me than anyone else who's been in the White House. But I don't want to just completely, you know, use him as a scapegoat of any sort. Those are his opinions. I don't agree with them. And you started the show talking about a stimulus check. If we can't even get that, reparations are a long way off, brother. Like if we can't get $1,200, $1,400, you know, I just don't see it happening. Unlikely to happen in my lifetime. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong, but you know, that's kind of how I feel.
So I often meet that sentiment with a picture. It's 1859, and two enslaved individuals are sitting on the porch, and one of them is saying, "Man, we're gonna be free one day. I'm telling you, it's coming. I swear it's coming. I can feel it. I think, you know, the things I'm hearing is gonna happen, and I've seen and reading stuff. And there's somebody that's like, we're not gonna be free, man. What you talking about? That's not gonna happen.
Well, that's
not
me
in my
tonight.
yeah, not in my lifetime. That's never gonna happen. Now, I'm not unrealistic about the possibility and the wrangling that it may take. But I am just, people have said something else was impossible and it happened, or something else wouldn't happen and it happened. So yeah. But we have to really have the conversations, and we have to be honest inside of those conversations. And I hear the person who was the president of the United States being wholeheartedly dismissive of the endless amount of evidence that substantiated a claim. I just hear it and it's disgusting to me. But did you catch when Bruce Springsteen said, you mean we can bail out the banks and the rich people, but we can't do something for the most oppressed? And he's like, well, the white people didn't like that either. But you did it. So what what? So, and I'm not making him the scapegoat. This is where we are in history, this far removed from him. And here you are not making it better, not going back in the dress. He went leaps and bounds on gay marriage in no time. His 8 years, he went leaps and bounds in that area. But you mean to tell me you this learned guy, this Harvard, I think, graduate, your wife is a direct descendant of slaves, and you're still resigned to thinking about how white people might feel if you did something transformational? It rubbed me the wrong way. Bob, what? Just give me your thoughts on it. I don't have a good question, so just give me your thoughts.
This political expediency, or this political business is especially frustrating to me, because I think that we have it takes courage, and we have examples over history of where people have done things with courage that have proved in time positive. And if you're always going to subordinate yourself to political popularity, we're not going to make any progress. And one of the things that's frustrating, I think, about Obama, and I'm an Obama fan. I mean, I voted for him twice. I was an advocate for him at both times he ran for president, and I'm glad he was president. I've always said, though, that he did not take nearly as much advantage of that opportunity as I wish he had. I've always said he wasn't as courageous as he had the opportunity to be. He wasn't the courageous leader that I thought he could be, because I think he had enough clout and enough political backing to do a lot more than he did. And I think that was a lost opportunity. We've got a crowd of white people that for the last 30 or 40 years have been disenfranchised. Add that to the hundreds of years of others that have been taken advantage of and disenfranchised. Yes, they will be hugely angry if we address reparations with African Americans, people that are descendants of the slave history, particularly. It doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. And it doesn't mean there's not things that need to be done for those people too. The frustrating thing is that they blame the wrong people for their circumstance. And they point the finger at the wrong people for their circumstance. And they support the ilk of people that are the very people responsible for their circumstance as the saviors for their circumstances. And nobody is educating them otherwise. Nobody is really pointing out the fact that they were just ignored as we built a greater and greater and greater capitalist orientation and capitalist society, and one that was in favor of the wealthy and the controlling and the powerful. So, there's a lot of education that needs to be done with those people on that topic, because they're supporting all the wrong people. They would be far better off supporting the most progressive people that they can find, regardless of race, running for whatever election they're running for. But to be attentive to them and not be attentive to the longest suffering group, and to spend money on things that we're spending money on, where we could spend less money if we work to really solve the inequity problems. If we would spend money on really solving the root issues of inequity and lack of opportunity and lack of hope, multi-generational lack of hope, multi-generational lack of reason to be have expectations, if we spent money on that and helped that crowd of people, we'd solve a whole lot of other problems that we're spending money to Band-Aid. So
I think it was $14 trillion, Bob, and I think, Dr. Elliott, we looked at the same article, or we talked about it, $14 trillion that the economy's lost due to systemic racism, just exclusionary tactics,
Yeah. So if we really were, so if we need to study something, it shouldn't be a study of whether we have reparations. We should take a position that we need reparations. We need to invest in reconciling the past and facilitating further opportunity for the people whose pasts over generations were taken away from them, and on whose backs a lot of our wealth, substantial amounts of our wealth, certainly the majority of our wealth, was built. Okay, let's study how to do that, maybe, but we don't study whether we need to do that or not.
Yeah, we study how to get it done. I totally agree with that. The things that, man, that resonate so much with me these days are the dances that take place, and I call it pretzeling, when somebody's just trying to talk around, or this is that and that is this. Like the lady's responding to him and saying, hey, we're going to do something towards racial equality and ending racism. You're skirting the precise commentary around doing something in terms of reparations. And then you have Barack's comments, and theoretically it makes sense. I mean, who injects that word into that conversation? Theoretically has no place in that conversation. So
let me add one other thing to that, and that is, and to Tango's point, but Barack Obama doesn't have the heritage.
Yeah, the lineage matters. Yeah,
and he understands that his successes are a function of people that he doesn't want to piss off.
So people he loves, they're his family members. He's raised by his grandparents who are white Americans. This is not so much a discussion in terms of what's personal about his existence. It's all about what you know and doing something to address something while you can. And he skirted that responsibility, and now he reflects on it from a theoretical perspective. But I want to make sure I get in that when you do what is being done and subverting the conversation and muddying the waters and pretzeling and saying that's this and this is that, one of his cabinet members, a black guy from, I want to say it's Mississippi, I can't remember exactly, but he's I should have gotten his name, but he made comments and we're ready to do stuff now. And then he immediately starts talking about education, college, free community college, so on and so forth. This is can kicking. I don't have a lot of friends that I grew up with that went to college. That does nothing for them. Are they still not a part of a lineage that goes right to slavery that should afford them the opportunities that so many generations of their family members missed out on, that should not elevate them in some type of way? Or is it just, hey, I know you're 50 years old, but man, you can go to community college now. That's going to help you a lot. It's unrealistic, it's can kicking, and it's disingenuous. So yeah, I saved Dr. Elliott for right now, because you can give us some more precise historical perspective probably than I can at this point. I'm gonna catch up with you one day though.
Yeah, I don't know if I can give you too much that's going to help right now, but I just spent the day lecturing about the politics of Reconstruction after the Civil War. It's amazing how much things have not changed in American history from that time. And that's when reparations were on the table, and they were talking about land redistribution, and that was an actual possibility. And then that possibility went up in smoke. So what is the possibility right now? It's an interesting thing. I'm having studied American politics my whole life. I'm actually not yet dispirited about Biden, as you seem to be, Felton. He's just started, and he's got his first bill on the table right now. And I can understand why they did the dance about reparations right now. But he has said he supported the bill, and the bill only says it's going to study the question of reparations and come back with a concrete proposal, right? So there's no real concrete proposal yet. So we're kind of getting a little ahead of ourselves in terms of where we're at in the political system on reparations. I think it's still I think we've moved way up in the last couple of years, pushing that issue into the actual agenda. But how it's going to come out, what it's going to look like, is still going to be a while, and I don't really know. But we just missed a huge opportunity that I think is kind of on the same level as reparations. The COVID bill. Biden just sacrificed one thing, because he couldn't get it past his conservative Democrats, Manchin from West Virginia, Sinema from Arizona, the $15 minimum wage, right? So minimum wage almost just doubled. That was in the bill. And wouldn't that be an instant relief to a huge amount of people out there? And yet that one got pulled out.
The lack of specificity is the only pushback I ever have to a lot of these things, Dr. Elliott. If you have someone here and someone there, and you pour water in the tank, then they rise that way. And there's no magic bullet to solve all of the ills, but there is a realistic perspective that has to be taken into account. Nobody's going to turn down $15 an hour. Nobody's going to turn down knocking off college debt. Lord knows they're not going to turn that down. Mm-hmm. But we can't call something what it's not. And just like when I have conversations about reparations on a local level, I'm emphatic. You can't call anything that takes place in a city or town reparations. That has to come from the federal level. And I go back and forth.
I wasn't suggesting that was instead of reparations, but it would be the most immediate thing they could have done. It would have helped a lot of poor people, all across the country. I'm kind of disappointed that their immediate agenda, they already compromised something important.
Yeah, exactly. And the compromise began actually with the lessening of the amount that he said was promised, just because the 600 came out before he took office. That's a whole nother story. But it's the terminology and the false equivalency, Dr. Elliott, that concerns me when it comes to these things. Because when you start talking about education as being some form of reparations, that's disingenuous.
Right.
There's just so many ways that it's being, commingled with things that it should not be. If you're going to fix a street in a neighborhood that everybody drives down just because it's in a predominantly Black area, that's not a form of repair for that side of town. That's a street that needed to be fixed, that money was already allocated for, and you're sensationalizing it to make it sound like it's doing something great on a particular side of town. So those things I'm kind of weary of. In terminology right now, man, some of the words that are being thrown around, concerning Black people, Black Americans, you know, they're often just flattened and thrown out to everybody and anyone. And I was talking yesterday, one of the things I said was, you know, intersectionality is detrimental somewhat to Black Americans because it spreads around everything that at one point in time was understood to be specific to their needs, to Black people's needs in this country. You just talked about Reconstruction. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 was specific to former slaves getting citizenship. The 14th Amendment, citizenship for formerly enslaved people. It becomes general, great. But if it becomes general on the backs of the people it was supposed to be specific to, then the cost is accumulated by those people. As we come forward in history, enfranchisement is taken away. Black codes, Jim Crow, brutality, lynching, all of those things happen to Black people. And inside of that, immigrants come in, the Irish and all of these other ethnic groups, and they eventually get to make gains. But we are forgotten. And that's the conversation that is easy to have if you know, and you can have it with somebody to inform them. But we're so programmed to be just disturbed by that reality and that truth. Yeah, if you had anything else to say, Dr. Elliott, go ahead. I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, I mean, I agree with what you're saying there. And, you know, so much of it is to educate other people to understand what you were just saying so that we can get enough people to support something to get through, right? And we know there's a good percentage of Americans who are never going to get behind it. So you do have to be bold, and you do have to, like, at a certain point say, okay, but we still got to get the middle people behind that too. And so I still think there's a delicate process of politicking just to put it in, frame it the right way, put it in the right words, package it so that they can get it the most support possible.
And he was so good at that, but he didn't want to do that. That one thing was, it's too much. But I'll say this, and then I'm coming to you, Meryl. The ideas around pissing off this segment of the population has to be concentrated purely to the voting block, because what are you saying? Most Black people I know do not live around white people. That's just the way this place has been carved up, and primarily the nation, because it's a racist place. So if you give the ability for white people for Black people, Black Americans, to make themselves more whole, to elevate themselves, to be more financially viable, their neighbors are going to be okay with it, because most of their neighbors are going to be looking like them and finally enjoying the same ability to be what America has promised, for America to be what it's been promised to them to be. And if those white folks have issues, aren't we supposed to be protected? Again, I go back to Reconstruction, the removal of the troops in the South when the Union was protecting Black folks. The deal that was made for Rutherford B. Hayes to become president leaves us high and dry. And we've been high and dry pretty much ever since in terms of safety. Yet, he didn't know this. And that's a former president that was president at the time, that his wife's people, if it's not somebody he can identify with because of his lineage, his wife's people would definitely would have been affected by the removal of the troops from the South. Anyway, I'm not being too harsh on the guy, but those are his words. That's what he said. Meryl, go ahead. What you want to bring to the table?
I don't know. I'm sitting here thinking about what I thought about that interview with Bruce Springsteen, and I totally understand and get why 2008 through 2016 the motivation to protect those sensibilities for Barack. I totally get it. I mean, I don't agree with it. I think there's a lot of different things that he could have done differently. But just speaking about race, when all stuff happened with Trayvon Martin, there's a lot of opportunities that I think he just didn't get it. And to Tango's point, the lineage piece and his sphere of influence is just different than mine. But I get taken back to the Democratic Party just in general is more powerful than the person. And until 45, I really thought that every president, I think Trump was the exception, but over the last 40, 50 years is president gets into office and then people get in the room and they say, hey, look, I know you're the president, but you don't run shit around here. Like, we run stuff. And that's how I feel, because our economy excludes, it's survival of the fittest. There's a reason why the Democratic Party put a kibosh on Andrew Yang and Bernie Sanders, because they were talking this, a lot of talk about basic income, universal income. And that speaks to Bob's point about if you make sure that people have the basic stuff that they need, that lessens the fervor and anger from the white folks who have not been able to enjoy success and get up and maybe would get upset in the middle if there are these reparations. If people just had basic universal income and didn't have to worry about their health care or worry about their rent, but we're just so greedy, and it's this like, I gotta be on top and I gotta crush people down. Our economy, our Democratic Party, and both of the political parties are just so powerful and have these other objectives. I think about this state of North Carolina, about how we were basically you can look at all the elected offices where Republicans swept, with the exception of the governor, who I never saw Roy Cooper take a picture with Yvonne Holly. I never saw him campaign for Sherry Beasley. There was all this fervor of all these nonprofits and other organizations lobbying saying, hey, we want to put these Black women into spaces. You got this national, with Kamala and just, and just kind of this energy to kind of take back power and make sure that we're supporting these Black women. But the party was like, nah, we don't want to do that. We want to figure out a way to take these Black bodies and align them to some larger mission and keep us in power. And so I'm struck on the party overall, which I've always been unaffiliated, so I don't get it. And then just this basic economy that we live in, where people are just held down, and there's this enjoyment of just having people on the bottom. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, there are resources there, and if we could just have folks not have to worry about my factory job went away and I can't pay my bills, they wouldn't be so damn worried about Black folks getting reparations. At least that's how I feel. Our economy is supposed to be based on free markets, and it's not. When you're having corporate socialism and
I think Meryl's got a fire over there, dude.
Yeah, might have burned something downstairs, but
you gotta go, man. You gotta go, man.
Our economy is just not. It's just our economy is just messed up. It's a reason why everybody still messing with. COVID numbers are crazy because we don't give people money to stay at home. In other countries, they figured out a way to share a piece of the pie so people can actually get healthy. So it's just our economy is just stupid.
Yeah. So it is individualism. That's what is pretty much preached here, just to make you feel better about being greedy, I guess. I mean, that's the one way to look at it. Tango, you can talk. I don't. What'd you say? I don't like the divisiveness. What are you talking? Go ahead.
I went to Facebook Live and started chatting. But what I was going to say is Obama, in some of that footage that you showed, I felt it was really divisive. Like, it was dividing, okay, well, to please this population of people or low income to middle class white people, then I can't talk about reparations for Black people. And that's the same old thing that's been happening. When, like Bob said, hey, collectively, we need to be working together on the same agenda because we have the same problems.
The othering is a real thing. And that was what that was, right? He's making this comment that's indicative and totally showing that I'm othering this group of people to make sure that I help this other group understand that I still look at them as that other. If we're all Americans, and he's a really good speaker. He's great with words and he's a great politician. If he approached it that way, this helps everyone. This makes us all better. This entire nation benefits from this. And he can change the word. I like community repair. I like fixing things or whatever little snazzy Obamacare-ish term you want to come up with. Do that.
Yeah.
But
So I just want to say real quick and then let you go. What I would love to hear and just be thinking about is like, what's the motivation in 2021 to be like that? I get 2008 through 2016, but why in that conversation is that the motivation to continue that? Because that's the part I don't get.
Towing the Democratic line is indicative, in my opinion, of acknowledging something and doing as little as you can about it, as far as being specific. Because you show you know something and you're aware of it, you get a level of endearment from the people that supposedly are your voting block, because we're so divided, red and blue. Like, we're so divided that just say enough to let them know you understand. Doesn't mean you're going to really do anything. Now, I want to say this because this goes to Dr. Eddie's point. I'm never out on anyone. I believe that at some point people can decide to do what's close to right. It doesn't have to be all the way right. But some people can acknowledge things to be what they are and actually be proactive in addressing them. So if that happens sooner than later, great. But I'm not going to hold my breath, and I'm also not going to sit on the porch and say, we're never going to get this and that. I'll just keep watching and keep talking how I talk. And hopefully, at some point, I'm heard. I sent Biden a long message before, during when he was running, and it was all about being specific to Black Americans. I don't think he got it. I don't think he got that message, but it was a long message that was just like, man, talk to us. I was looking at something else, and I did intend on doing this. We can maybe save it for next week. I have more clips I wanted to play, and I'll say this, and if it sparks you to go look on your own, fine. This is inside but it's mostly outside of this conversation and narrative, but it's inside of it. I was paying attention to some of the things on the news of late about the assaults on Asian Americans, and I'm blown away by the amount of traction and attention that's been given to that conversation. So it got me to thinking, and the person that always comes to my mind when it comes to bad situations between Black Americans and Asian population, and that's not necessarily what's been purported on the news in terms of these attacks. It's across the board. It's in general. But I often think of Latasha Harlins in Los Angeles. So I had pulled up a couple clips that I wanted to play. We only have 7 minutes. If you guys want to, at the minimum, watch the clips, and we can save it for another conversation, or we can save it for next week. I'll go by a show of hands. Anybody want to wait till next week? Oh, y'all want to play? Okay. Well, I'll play them. And no, I'm not going to play them. I'll save it for next week because I think we all probably have something else to do. That's a cliffhanger, right? Anyway, I thought about those, and I think about them in the context of the voices that have been heard with the specific specifically addressing these heinous attacks, and the silence that often is found when it comes to putting things in context and helping us understand why certain things have happened, especially when it's easy to point the finger towards the least of us and totally ignore what's happened there for so long. And if I played this clip, it's heartbreaking what happened to Latasha Harlins. Look her up if you desire to, but she's one of her and Rodney King are the catalysts for the riots in LA in '92. I hate to do that to you, but I feel like it'll give us something to revisit next week. So I didn't expect us to really spend this much time on this. But anyway,
you could play the clip. You could play the clip as the cliffhanger, and so we would give thought.
Good point. So I'll do that, Bob. I'll do it like this. Go look at the reports and you might have seen them already on some of the attacks on Asian Americans and how that's being framed and how it's being made for us to understand that this is atrocious, this is despicable, and this is bad behavior, and it will not be tolerated. Now, since it makes sense to, I'll play the clip of Latasha Harlins. It does have some graphicness to it. It's I think this was in '91, I believe. So we probably have all been desensitized since then to certain levels of violence, unfortunately. But I'll play it and we'll come back. Hold on one second. Let me get this together.
This grainy security camera videotape graphically depicts the last few moments of 15-year-old Latasha Harlins' life. Store owner Soonja Du thought 15-year-old Latasha Harlins was going to steal some orange juice.
She had the money in her hand. You can see the money in the videotape. And the suspect grabbed the backpack, and there became a physical altercation over the backpack. And as our victim turned to walk away from the scene, the suspect raised a weapon and shot the victim in the back of the head.
Latasha was an A student, honor roll student. She got money every week for her allowance, so she did not have to steal orange juice.
The store clerk, a Korean woman, is now in jail. The black community is outraged over the killing. The NAACP is demanding the clerk be tried for murder.
Please read the verdict. Title of court and cause. We, the jury, approve of the time of action, find the defendant Soonja Du guilty of voluntary manslaughter in violation of Penal Code Section 192A.
It is not a time for rhetoric, which serves no purpose other than to fuel the fire. It's like throwing gasoline on a fire that's already burning. It is my opinion that Mrs. Du is not a danger to the community and that she is not going to reoffend. I know a criminal when I see one. I know a person who presents a danger to the community when I see one. When I don't, I treat that person as something other than that.
She got away with murder. I damn sure hope so that there would be all the hell in the I hope somebody would care. Stand up. I see this inside people exactly what black people once again being unjustly treated by the street.
Since we don't pick cotton anymore and cut sugar cane, our lives is not worth anything.
All right, so I played that primarily because it was the best contextualization, because that tragic event occurred. The lady who murdered Latasha Harlins went to jail briefly, that was arrested or whatever, went on trial, but she was released by that judge. And there's a really good article, and I'll definitely share it with anybody who wants to check it out. But the article unpacks all of these dynamics: the class dynamic, the seeming inability for the judge to sympathize with a young black female. And that judge, if I'm not mistaken, is now like a mayor or something out there in California. I can't recall. The article tells the story, but it breaks down each of these women's American lives, basically. The heartbreak and the desensitization and the disillusionment that African Americans, that Black Americans, that ADOS Americans have to continuously and perpetually deal with, that is something that just keeps going. And it's not ever seemingly considered as a real detriment to some of the citizens that have been intricate to this country getting as close as it has to all of the ideals it has espoused since its origin. It's unfortunate, and I don't bring that up as a oppression Olympics moment, or hey, they're complaining now, but look what we've been talking about forever. It's simply facts, and it exists, and it is for us to be better informed about. Because right now, I saw all of these clips from Good Morning America and all these, and it had me do one other thing, and I'm going to let everybody go. It had me think. And it was mentioned that, our former president, 45, was one of the catalysts for, mentioning this virus as being something that would be associated with the Asian community. So he was purposeful in causing these situations. But then I looked at the voting, and at least 30% of the Asian community voted for Trump. And I looked at the Black voting. I, of course, don't have to look much at it because we've been in the pocket of Democrats forever. But when I took a look at it, and this is a sidebar, but it's another way I'm interpreting the way things are communicated on the internet and media, whatever. I think it was 89% total Black Americans, but it was hard to find just that total number because they've carved out and make sure that they let us know that Black men voted in less percentage. I think 82%. God, dog, what do we have to do? We're here, we support, we do, but we don't see the gains of it. And
I'm supposed to.
it's very, very, very disturbing once you take a step back and really look at the big picture. I'm sorry I talked so much tonight, guys. If I do want to come around the room, I'll start with you, Meryl. Anything you want to say or throw out there before we wrap up?
Oh no, I put in the chat on Facebook. If anybody's ever had a chance to watch that 10-part ESPN documentary on O.J. Simpson, that kind of details why Black people were so happy and white people were so mad after that verdict. It's such a great. It details like that talks about Latasha Harlins and just like the whole history of just like of oppression and just like what led to that. So if anybody has not watched that, watch it. It's unbelievable. So, but yeah, thanks for tonight, man. It's a good conversation.
Good, appreciate it. Dr. Elliott, I know I have stuff to do, so I'm sure you do. So I'm sorry to keep you, but yeah, what do you got?
I don't know if I have any wrap-up comments. I did watch that documentary with my kids, who knew, of course, weren't alive then, so they were amazed to learn that whole story. But yeah, that judge, Felton, with the comment that I know a criminal when I see one and who's a danger to a community, like that. That's it in a nutshell, right? That's where the whole justice system, is skewed because of bias. And that's the heart of what we have to somehow fix, So yeah, that was a good clip.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, I agree. I'll definitely share that article with you. I think it's an awesome article that breaks down those lives. I should put it in the chat. If anybody's interested, I'll send it to you. I have everybody's email. Tango, yeah, what you got?
So the judge knows a criminal when she sees one, but she doesn't know a child when she sees one because that child happens to be Black. That's what I can't get. And she doesn't when she sees it was filmed. So that was I can't with that one, Meryl. Felton, that's too much. I'm sick of our children being killed because they have Black skin.
So again, the ideas around class and a devaluing of Black American lives being baked into one's, and she was an immigrant, one's arrival to this country. It's palpable, right? And that video shows their store located in a predominantly Black neighborhood. Your customers are going to be predominantly Black, but you understand, because of what America has created in terms of our appearance, in terms of Black Americans' appearance, that those people need to be watched. Those people will steal. And even if it has happened in that store previously, and she may have had a point, that wasn't the case that particular time. And if they're stealing, then why are they stealing? Economics. Why is that store not owned by a Black American in a Black American neighborhood? It's a whole lot of things to unpack when we really take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Bob, I'll let you get the last word in, and we'll wrap it up for the night.
Yeah, the only thing I want to say is that the judge's comment, I agree completely with Tango. What if the clerk just said, "Oh, I know a criminal when I see one, so I shot her"? You know, if a policeman says, I know a person that's going to kill me when I see him, I'm going to shoot him. You know, that should disqualify a person from being a judge for sure. It should disqualify a person from being in any position. That attitude, that perspective should disqualify anybody from being in such a role that they can have that kind of impact. And that's pretty much every role in life, right? So, yeah, this has been a really good conversation tonight.
I appreciate it, man. And she said it with confidence too. That was the most disturbing. Yeah, I know.
Like, I know, and I can know.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, look, I appreciate everybody. I'll try to get. I tell you what, I want to try to do at least two down and dirty shows, and then 2 happy-go-lucky. We still gotta get another. Dr. Elliott, you're gonna have to join us when we do what's the thing, the Kahoot, when we do a quiz thing one night. Yeah, I'm gonna make sure you're there for that. We give away prizes and everything. So
yeah, prize night. That's always fun. You gotta have your sister on here that night.
Yeah,
is it a history quiz? I hope.
We may do that, but see, I'm gonna have to trick it up, maybe about movies or something. Movie history or something. But you would compete with me in that. You like movies too. But I've enjoyed you all. I appreciate everybody being here this evening. Y'all have a wonderful night, and everybody on Facebook and on YouTube, thanks for joining us also. Take care.
Y'all take care. Bye.
Good night.